motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now we have brief public comment. So would you like to make some sort of comment at all, or?
I think what we'd like to do is just give a feeling for what this land use thing is about. You know, it's something we've heard about.
Okay.
We don't know anything about it, so we're here to learn.
Okay. Well, do you have specific questions you'd like to ask us? Because,
Not right now.
okay.
I'm sure we will.
Right, well, because we have a lot of work to do tonight, and we are going to be making a presentation to the Board of Trustees on January 22nd, which is, I think, a week from yesterday, so next Tuesday. So you'll hear more about what this is all about. Then you'll be able to get it from all of us, because we're presenting to the entire board.
Yeah, I would say that, you know, one of the things I've looked at is what they talk about is we're trying to maintain our rural character. And I think we lost that when that trailer park was with, you know, about 15 to 20% of the population of the township living in a trailer park on 50-foot lots. I don't see how we can talk about a rural environment, particularly when we're like we're right in the backyard of that thing.
Yeah. That was really nothing that our township could do about that. I mean, it was something that you have to be able to provide for all kinds of housing. And so that's,
yeah, but we had to provide our master plan. As a matter of fact, even now, my concern is that the way the master plan for Salem Township was originally written, they provided for a very large one, at least as big as that one there, that's owned by BFI.
right.
And I think that's something that could come back and bite us. The board went ahead and you know, I don't want to take up a bunch of your time here today, but anyway, we were not thrilled. We even went to Lansing and opposed some of the permits that they were trying to get for water and so forth, you know. But anyway, so anytime I see something that talks about the rural environment in Salem Township, I look at least 20% of the population of the township is in that trailer park, and to me that's not a very rural environment.
Thank you. We'll maybe be able to talk after the meeting. Perhaps we'll be able to talk after the meeting.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
okay.
I've got a lot of knowledge of what went on there.
So do we have any correspondence that we need to bring forward? Barry, do you have anything? Okay, so Mary Beth has to leave at 8, so so we can try and get through as much of the stuff as we can pretty quickly. The annual budget, I had put on here, in your packet, there's information about where we stand with our budget. And we haven't really used much of our budget. There are 3 pages. The first page shows our operating budget, and so far, year to date, we've only spent $11,400 of that out of 51,000. So that's we only have to use 22%.
Yep.
And
this is for the fiscal year
that runs to the end of March.
31st of March.
And it's
correct.
through, so the date that this is through,
This is through January 31st, month ending January 31st.
so it's all, this is, you know, I guess up to date.
This is, I just got it yesterday,
Yeah.
so it's about as up to date.
It includes
as
the
we get.
expenditures that happened.
Now, I know that this board has wanted to withhold their salaries to these appointed officials so that we don't get paid for it. So, in our proposal to the board, if you want to continue to do that and you wanted to carry that money over, we would have to really make an effort to ask the board if they want to do that, because, you know, in an operating budget like this, sometimes if you don't use it, you lose it, as far as operationally, you know, so we have to discuss how we want to do that to the board.
That's the appointed officials
That's,
line,
that's like us.
704.
Yeah. So it's not like I think that if we don't use this money that we are just going to automatically get it,
Roll it into some other.
and roll it into another thing. Now, in the second page, under capital expenditures, you can see that under Department 980, 820, 01, improvement land acquisition, we've been given, our amended budget was $175,100, and we've used year-to-date $64,200. So we have an available balance of $110,900. And now, if we don't use this before March 31st, I am going to ask if we can roll that over to the next year like we did the year before. And then the third page is,
I have a question in a second.
okay,
So there's capital improvement land acquisition, there's two other capital improvement lines there. Fire department.
03 and 04?
No,
yeah,
technology,
right.
which ought not to be there, I assume.
No, they're
Well,
just
this-
different, they're just different
It
items.
doesn't apply to
It
underneath.
doesn't
us.
apply to this.
It doesn't apply to us,
This is
right?
for-
Right.
It's just under this
It's a little confusing.
department.
Yes, it is
But it's
confusing.
under that department.
Okay.
And then I've asked, you know, to be able to see our other money, which is money that was put away by the other board on the 27th of March last year. We had a balance of $85,200, and so that money has been put into a designated fund. So here it is. Now therefore be resolved that Salem Township Board commits $150,000 for the planned, and $85,200 for the planned acquisition of land and/or property development rights, and that these funds be designated and restricted for those purposes.
So that's the carryover from
Yes,
the
but
first partial.
I have to make sure that this new board and the treasurer and the clerk see that and understand it, because it's not in any of these kinds of reports, so it's kind of confusing for me.
Yes, it is.
So, I'm not an accountant or that kind of person, but I just want to make sure that that everybody's aware of that. Now, for the new year, we're going to be asking for our, this, you know, again, we've been allocated $200,000 each year from earned interest income, and I don't know where we stand on the earned interest income, so we're going to have to get that information from Dale, although he shared with me that we didn't get very much in earned interest income last time, but then I think,
Like if it's not, if it's less than 200,000, then that amount would be reduced
yes,
to whatever the real amount was.
yes,
In other words, it's not to exceed 200,000.
it's not to exceed 200,000. So we will be preparing a proposal for this board, because you're going to be reviewing this when? In February? You start doing the budget?
Yeah, I know there's probably a lot of work going on right now, but I haven't been told directly.
Okay, so I will put together some information about this, and then make it as a proposal to the supervisor and see where it goes from there. I know that we have to clarify what this interest income really is, because when they sell the bonds, sometimes that interest income is not reported in the, at the same spot when they roll it over, or when they put it in different funds. So we have to try and find all that interest income.
So, would it be accurate to say then that once the board's been made aware of the $85,200 that was carried over, that the available balance for land acquisition is $196,100?
Yeah, that's where it is. I mean, that's totally where it is. I mean,
Yeah, so it's
that's
the
way,
110,900
that's
plus
what's
the
been
85,000.
approved so far, so.
Correct.
um,
So I'm just,
Yeah.
later on, in the closed session,
mhm.
we're going to revisit some of the commitments that have been made,
Okay,
as well as the expenditure that was made on the Hornbeck property. And so when we're doing that, we're just shy of 200,000 in terms of what we're able to do
okay.
right now.
Any other questions about the annual budget from anybody? So let's go on to annual report. The annual report has been submitted, and Barry worked on that for us to, I don't know if we should read it, or if you've all had time to read it, probably not, so.
Better to say a couple things about it.
Sure.
I used last year's report as a template, and just went through notes and meeting minutes and various things to come up with, I thought, the highlights of the year. And when I started it, I thought, well, I wasn't really to do that much last year. We were going for a whole year. It was just sort of still getting ramped up. But then as I started to jot things down and write it out, I was like, well, actually, we caught quite a lot of it last year. We didn't quite close that. We did close that first project. So that gets highlighted here. And we applied for 2 FRPP grant awards and received both of them. We had a mailing that generated some more applications. Some of the information, like the whole first paragraph basically, and some things in the second paragraph were carryover from last year. I just thought with the new board, having information like the ordinance number and things of that sort would be helpful for you. Next year probably won't need to have those paragraphs in there again, but I thought it would be educational for them to see that. So the Hornbeck property is mentioned there, the township's contribution, and that was 20% of the appraised value, and there was another 20% contribution from the county, and the owners donated. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Mary.
I didn't know your meetings had changed to Wednesday.
Yes.
So I came yesterday.
Oh, boy.
And I almost forgot today.
Well, we're glad to have you, Mary.
So who's the new person?
This is Mary Beth Schmidt.
Hi,
This
I'm
is
Mary.
Mary Calmetto.
I was on this for several aspects.
Yeah, she's been on
Her name's
forever.
on this report?
Yeah.
And this is Diane and
Jerry.
Jerry Griffith.
Wiggins.
Wiggins, so,
So I mentioned that the Hornbecks donated 10% of the appraised value of the Greenbelt program benefits. So it's a 4-way partnership, and that's the kind of thing that we're endeavoring to accomplish with this program, is have multiple funding partners and so forth. And I talked a little bit about the Balo project, which isn't closed yet, but I think it's important to say there's another one just down the road where it's going to be completed, and right now there isn't any township money into it. But nevertheless, that's going to close also. Talked about the natural resources work, and then the Parks and Rec plan. a whole, I thought it was actually a nice little report to
That's
go
good,
to the board.
that's good.
But, and we were talking about having this be part of the package for the board meeting next week.
Yeah, and we'll put a slide on there, and you and I will work together, we'll put the head saying, look, these are the big accomplishments last year. This is what we did, and then this is what we're working on, to give everyone a flavor of what.
Yeah, and some of that stuff was already in there.
Yeah.
You already had it in the
Yeah,
start,
I started rambling, so.
Yeah, but I think you were right on target with a lot of stuff. So anyway, comments are, I guess, I would say welcome. And, but if we want to get this into the board packet, we have to have that in by,
Thursday.
yeah.
But the only thing I would want to say about this, the Balo property is making a comment that Salem Township is really not contributing any money towards that, right?
It does
So-
say
It does
that.
say that? I didn't see that.
They wanted us to.
No, I did not mention that. So, I mean, I can still put something like that.
I just
Something
think
like
because people will want to know.
that. Sure.
I mean, I think that's the only thing that I noticed, but.
Okay. So, anyway, I would welcome your other comments, but I want to get them quickly so we can get in the board package.
The other thing is
I
about
would recommend
this,
getting into the board package tomorrow.
right, the other thing
Next week.
that we have, would like to add into that is that this conservation, this board, this committee for the Natural Resources Trust Fund, that has been seated, although I don't know, I've talked to Daniels, right, yes, everybody's seated, except John Daniel I talked to, and he doesn't, said that he can't commit right now, so, and you said that you would do it if he didn't, right?
Yeah, it depends what kind of timing, though. I'm finding myself very, very, like Elastigirl being stretched in a
Yeah,
hundred
I
ways. And I
understand.
hate to take on, I've really got to know the power to know when
There's visible disappointment.
I'm single parenting this week. It's just, I realize
Yeah.
how fragile.
It does say the board of trustees approved funds for and appointed a committee to guide plan production.
Okay. It's just that I thought everybody's now been seated, except for
The board rep.
the board rep.
That's true.
But it's up, but Mary Beth said she would do it if,
And how much do you think?
I don't think you need to do that much really, Mary Beth, because they need to have a kickoff meeting. And then we have a consultant who's willing to do most of the work. And then you guys all will review it and you will have input, right?
Sure, but yeah,
I mean,
the planning consultant is
not-
the one that's
yeah.
coordinating that. I just want to be clear. It's-
Planning consultant is and not, right, not you, right.
Yes.
And so I don't think it's like you have to be at a lot of the workshop sessions and things like that. I don't know if they are going to be at them. I think this consultant is my understanding that he was going to be doing a lot of it. Not Don Pennington, but the other man.
Right after our last meeting, I called Donna because that's what you directed me to do, is to find out if I could contact Don Pennington and get something rolling. I was immediately told that Don Pennington would not be our lead in this, it would be Rodney.
Right.
And so
what I heard.
I was told that the people would be contacted, okay, and we would get something going. Then when Donna came back from vacation, I called again and asked if we had something set up, a meeting date or whatever, because I did have the committee I had to report to. And I was told that the hangup was the board person, the board representative, and they were having difficulty getting somebody from the board to sit on this committee. And I said, well, she said, and that's the directive, and so I was told that she's the contact person, and all this has to go through her. Okay?
Okay. So you can take that back to your board and just find out if they're going to be able to get a representative on the board. If you can't do it, I don't think that this is a long project. It's not more than like 6 months probably, although it's taken over 6 months for us to even have a meeting. So this is the part that's kind of, what?
I'm sorry, yeah, clarification.
So just describe to me a little bit what exactly you want this board to do, or it's not a board though, I mean.
This is a committee.
Yeah.
This is a
So
committee
what-
made up of a variety of different people.
Is it to develop a master plan for parks and
Yeah, it's just
recreation
last-
for the township? Is there already something kind of
Just
in
perfect.
place?
There's all, no, there's nothing, our township has nothing right now, but there are sample ones for Scioto Township, right?
No, there's many samples.
So there's many samples, and so we just have to make it so that it is individualized to Salem Township.
If we do this, if we put together a Parks and Recs plan, that makes us eligible to go after state funds. It's over $30 million
A year.
a year, so we can tap into that. But what we have to do is prove we have a plan. And really, all we have to do is write that into our master plan, and that's, we presented this last year, and everyone passed it, said, great idea, and then we got a new board.
Well,
So-
we started this in
Yeah.
March last year, if you
Right.
remember. So we've been trying to get this board seated and get a meeting going since last March.
The directive came from the planning commission that the committee will be comprised of 2 members of the planning commission, a member from land preservation and conservation, a member of the board of trustees, and a member of the public. And so that's how the committee is being, that's what the makeup of the committee is. And so unfortunately, because the directive is that there needs to be a representative member from the board of trustees, that's what we're waiting for. We have the other people on board ready to go. We just need that person from the board that will be a part of this.
Can the board delegate to someone else to be a member instead of a member, a trustee, or does it have to be a
It
trustee?
wouldn't be the board that we delegated, it'd have to go back to the planning commission.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
assumed.
I'm not sure about that, but.
Well, but the planning commission is, from what I understand from Donna, who this is originating from. It's not from the land preservation and conservation, it's not. So it is, so I would think that maybe the board could possibly say that they didn't want to feel that there was a need, but it's still gonna, I think, have to go back to the planning commission to have the makeup of then the committee change. I can't, that's just speculation on my part, so please don't.
So bureaucratic, so I don't know, I'm pretty frustrated about it, because we started this, I don't even remember when it was, but I think it was, when do you think that was, Bob? It was like in March, wasn't it? It was in March.
Maybe possibly if you wanted to have maybe a better idea, possibly Donna could give you a better idea, because she said that she's the contact point for all of this, the different people. So possibly she could tell you how involved it is, what she figures her time frame, would be for
Well, we
this
have
whole thing.
a budget based on, I thought it was 19 hours. Something like that, wasn't it, Bob? 19 hours or something like that?
I don't remember.
For this group,
For
the
the
committee
development of this.
with
Right,
with
with the
consultant.
consultant.
For some reason, I think it's.
Would this just be for one section in the township, or is it?
No, it's
No, it's the whole,
entire
it's the whole.
Because that makes it more.
No, actually,
Like more complicated.
well, explain, it's not really, we're not developing it for
I
each,
didn't bring one, did you?
within, it's a open spaces and recreation, parks and recreation section that will basically be a part of the master plan, but it's,
No, but I know what
Policy statement,
Pardon?
it's a policy statement
we're talking about
of
the,
what
I didn't bring it either.
what the township wants in the master plan for that type of activity.
Right.
Can I add one more thing? One of the biggest reasons to go this route, even though it's a lot of trouble, huge amount of trouble, is this source of funding will pay more of particular pieces of properties cost than any other.
75%.
Up to
75%, which is huge. So if somebody else pays more than 50%, you see, then you had to go find another source of funding, so it really is worthwhile. even though it's a pain in the butt.
And-
Right?
And the ones that we've been looking at are standalone master plans for open space and parks. And this committee would look at that and decide, I mean, it's got a scary title so that people think we're gonna have like parks with jungle gyms and that, but, it doesn't necessarily have to
It
be
could
like
be-
that. It just
it could
means
be
public
anything.
lands.
It
It could be like,
a boat ramp.
it could, yeah, it can be a boat ramp and it, or, you know, if we had a lake. But, you know, like, what, the boat ramp out in the field?
A number of different things qualify to be a part of the grant, the funding. So, and because your property, let's say, just for, you know, you picked park equipment this year, you can still submit next, am I correct in this? You can still submit next year for something else to further enhance and develop that area for the community. It's not, I mean, you can pick
There's,
picnic area or picnic tables or something like that. It's
Trails.
not, trails, yeah. I mean,
Trails
it's
over
not-
wetlands where you have to have.
So
wood-
because the property has been submitted one year for a certain thing, does not then eliminate it for potential submitted in future dates for additional things to be added to it for the public enhancement. So-
And then that would bring up in my mind, if it's public lands, and let's say we do have some trails. Let's turn this off, you know. I have a mushy love song. I'm like, that's you every time. He's like, oh gosh. So, he's out of town. It makes me think, well, see, he just still throws him off my feet. Who's responsible, you know, like maintaining these things? How does this affect insurance?
Very
All
lucky about that.
liability, that kind of stuff.
to qualify for these state grants, it has to be for property that the township is going to purchase and own and be responsible for, whatever it is. It could be there's the Salem Township thing. It could be for, you know, a natural area that has some trails and very little maintenance on it. There's two parts to the program. One is to acquire the land, and then there's also another part of it to support the development of that property. So you could acquire a natural area and put in trails, and that would be covered by an acquisition grant. And then the next year, you could say, well, we want to put in a little parking area, and we want to apply for a grant to get 75% of the cost of doing that also. Or if you want to have a more developed site, you can have that, but it doesn't have to be a developed site. But regardless of whether it's a natural area with a couple of trails or, you know, a property that has some sort of facilities on it, you know, a picnic shelter or playground equipment, or if you want to go that way, the township owns it, is responsible for it, has to maintain it. It's an insurance policy. You know, the township owns other properties. It owns this property, it owns the park property. There's other properties around the township owns. Those are all on the insurance policy now. Just add that to the insurance policy.
Now, what happens with, if you know, you're obviously getting funds from the state. What are the, like, boundaries and restrictions of usage on this?
It has to be open to the public. So the kinds of activities aren't specified.
So we have a lot of leeway in how it's.
Yes, as long as it's accessible to the public. And if it's, you know, the one that we just bought in Salem, because we had a plan, is a mostly natural area. We're putting in a little parking area and some trails down to the river that goes through the property, along the edge of the property, and that's all we have to do. You don't have to put up bathrooms, you don't have to put up picnic equipment, or picnic shelters, or playground equipment, or anything like that. You don't have to do anything.
If you look and you read the document, and I can make the presentation again if you know, people want to, it's very, very broad. I mean, it depends a lot specific in the county that they're in. You know, some counties that are adjacent to the Great Lakes establish boat access ramps. Some, you know, is very described as walking path. Some it was just another up north, a place to go hunting. It was hunting ground. It was opened up to hunting. But it was the big thing was it had to be accessible to the public. And that's all gotta be part of the plan, and we gotta work that up, and that's why it's a big job. But the first step is to get the master plan updated, so we can even begin to apply. It's a big job, it's not easy, and it's not just go write us a check, yeah. And it's not just write us a check, right? I mean, we've gotta put together a clear plan, and a lot of work.
Because I could, really see with all the equestrian activity in our township, I mean, I could see people wanting
Oh, I know they do.
horse trails.
Yes,
So
yes,
when you
yes.
think about that, do we need, what's specific to equestrian activity that would be expected of us, and what kind of money? And so you're saying that these state funds would help us buy the property and then help to develop it? Like put the things in there, like we needed restrooms, or we needed a first aid blocks, box, or, who knows what could be involved. But those funds could then help us to buy what we need to actually make that.
Yeah, and in both cases, they'll cover up to 75% of either the cost of the land or the cost of the development that you want to do. So, in the second case, you'd have to come to them and say, this is what we want to do. We've got a sketch of what we're going to do, we're going to put a bathroom in here, we're going to do this over here, this is what the cost of those things are going to be. Here's, we've got, proposals,
This isn't
contractors.
anything that hasn't been done already.
Sure. I'm
It's just an
wondering
opportunity.
what
to
it
us here.
does to us budget-wise and what we have to be prepared for.
Sure.
All of that. But if there's that much being covered, I mean, that certainly makes it more intriguing.
There's one application deadline a year for either development grants or for acquisition grants, and that's April 1st. So obviously we're not going to meet that this year, but the goal is that we are eligible by next April to do that, whether we have a good property or not. But if we can get the plan produced, and there are standards that have to be met that are provided by the trust fund. So if we get a plan approved by the trust fund, then we're eligible. And we're eligible basically for 5 years until you update the plan again. It has to be done every 5 years. But so whether or not you have a property or a project that's available and ready to go, doesn't matter. You're eligible to apply as long as you have the Parks and Rec plan that's been approved.
Right.
Up north, there is a specific conservation area specifically for equestrians. I think that's really neat,
Yeah.
being one myself.
Do you ride?
I did, but right now I have a breeder at my farm with big fancy tricaners, so it's really
It could
nice.
be, something a lot less complicated than that. It could be just a place to go cross-country skiing.
Sure.
Yeah, that'd be good too. I do
Or
that
just
too.
walking.
Yeah,
Or walking your sheepdog.
it's just walking fast. I think the one I saw in Scioto, they still did some farming on it even. I think off of near Ellsworth Road, I think they one.
Okay.
And they still do some minimal farming, and then they've got the access trails and everything else. So.
Actually, the maintenance of a place can be paid for by the farming.
So
More than
maybe,
paid for.
Mary Beth, I could give you a copy of what the Scioto Township has.
Yeah.
You could kind of look through it and see if this is something that you could find time to, be the representative, so this could start. Either that, or I guess we'll have to try and include someone else. I appreciate how busy you are because I was there.
And start
Here's some
means-
examples.
Doesn't start mean you get a consultant working on it.
Yeah, that's, you see, that's,
Everybody's on
see,
board.
we
It's
have
like
all these
doing the
people,
work. It's like
and we need to have them, they need to have a meeting so that they can start the
Authorize.
authorize the consultant to start working on it, and then there will be an interface in between this committee. He will bring things forward to you as a committee that you will review, comment on, and then it'll go back to the consultant, then eventually it'll go to a public hearing. There has to be public hearings, is that right?
And also
So
has to be.
There needs to be
That's
two
right.
forms of public input.
Right.
One of them could be a public hearing, where the public is invited to review or to just provide input about what kinds of recreational facilities they would like to have in the community. And some, there might be people come and say, I want equestrian
Right.
trails. And then people come and say, I want cross-country ski trails. I want a place to walk my sheepdog. Everybody's going to have an opportunity to provide input through that vehicle and some other one too. And that's something for the committee to decide what's the second means of doing that. You could have an online survey that you promote in the newsletter or something like that. There's various other things that are in the materials that the trust fund provides to say you have to have two forms of public input. Here are some suggestions about how to achieve that. So from that you can say, okay, this is what people want.
Right.
And then we start looking for properties because it's not a takings or eminent domain kind of thing.
Right.
We say, well, people want to have a place where they can ride horses, and you can't ride horses on 3 acres.
Right.
You need to have 80 acres. Okay, well, can we find an 80-acre property that would be suitable for that? And then go to a landowner and say, this is something you would consider doing.
Sure.
And if they say yes, then we say, okay, here's our property. And we get an appraisal and it says it's going to cost, $300,000, and we put in for a grant for 75% of that for the acquisition of the property. So that's the kind of process that would happen over the course of several years.
Sure.
But, in the production of the plan, you got to have the public being to say that it's not just, us sitting around the table saying, well, what do you want to do?
Oh, right.
This,
That
we've got to have
doesn't
the
seem
public saying, this is what we want,
Yeah.
This is what we don't have in our community, and this is what we want. And, this is the first step in being able to acquire lands and get all that much money. Steve just handed me all, this is just an example of all the projects that have been funded over the last 35 years or something like that, whatever it is. So it's somewhere around $30 million a year, and the revenue for that comes from the leasing of minerals on publicly owned lands, mostly north. So oil well gets put on a piece of public property. The resources that are extracted from that are public resources, and that goes into this trust fund. The royalties and the revenues from that, and it's a huge trust fund. I don't know how much it is, several $100 million, enough to generate $30 million a year, pretty regularly, depending on how good the oil market is and how good the financial markets are. But somewhere around that amount, and it's competitive. I mean, there's probably $50 or $60 million worth of requests that go in every year.
Well, right.
From
30 million is a lot, but not stable.
right, and it's for all these communities, townships, villages, cities, counties. It could be the Metro Park Authority, I think maybe eligible also, so a multi-county kind of thing. All these public entities that have plans are then eligible to apply for these grants, and they all say this is our project, and it gets scored on a similar kind of a system for everybody. So whoever gets the highest score are the ones basically that get the money. But you got to have the plan.
Who submits the plan to?
The township does. It comes. I mean, ultimately, the board of trustees would have to.
No,
Well, I mean, to
the master plan,
state.
the master plan is done
You're
solely
asking
by
for
the
the-
planning commission.
But you're asking who's going to submit
Yeah, who's
this,
this is
the
competitive.
request for the
Oh,
particular
for
grant.
actual grants.
Right,
Yeah,
is what she's, yeah.
Who's the representative actually making the pitch to the state to get funds?
Well, we would, if we get to that stage, we would prepare a package.
This board, this
Land
land preservation board.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you probably want to have a top-notch person pitching this, if it's some sort of
We've got them.
presentation, who does this?
He's very well respected and
And Steve is
Well,
fantastic.
part of it would be, there are certain documents that I know that were submitted for the Scioto Township grant application that were, nice graphics that I don't have the capability of producing. So I know the planning consultant Scioto was the one that was charged with doing that part. So it was a collaboration between
Okay.
me and that firm
Mhm.
that produced the application for funding to purchase a property that could get funded. And we finally did close it after 4.5 years. But anyway, yeah, so it would be a collaborative process with involvement from certainly the conservation board.
Ultimately, it's one or two people. Is it all being presented just on paper? Or do you go and make a face-to-face presentation to some board at the state level?
That is possible to do. It's, I think, kind of reserved for really big projects, yeah. I mean, if they got 30 million, you're asking for 5,
Right.
you know, something like that, then they want to say, well, what's worth $5 million? You know, you got to sell them on that. Other than that, it's really based on whoever scores the best.
Oh,
You know, they just go right down the list until they run out of money. And ultimately, you know, they make decisions and make recommendations to the legislature, which still holds the purse strings and has to actually pass a bill, make it signed by the governor to appropriate the funds.
oh, okay,
But we deal primarily with the trust fund.
okay, thank you.
Can we go back to Barry's annual report? I see about 3 general categories of things, and they aren't clearly separated. To me, I'd rather see, here's what happened last year, projects completed. Here are projects that are currently open that we're working on. And they're all in here. It's how we collect them. And then here's a new thing that we need, a special new thing, important new thing, is this Parks and Rec thing. In other words, I see some things that I don't think somebody who's not familiar with it would figure out that the first two paragraphs are sort of like finished, and then at the bottom sentence of the second paragraph we have current 5 properties active. That sort of starts a new subject to me.
I agree.
And then in the future we have so many more applications that we haven't reviewed yet, or we're working on, or what do we want to accomplish next year.
It does say, you know, and this is the quote from the ordinance, that listing of all parcels of land donated or for which conservation easements or regions have been acquired.
I think it's all in here, Barry. I'm just saying that I think someone that reads this is not familiar with it is going to not clearly understand that some of the stuff is finished. Some of it is open and moving along.
Pending, and some coming up.
And in the future, we would hope to accomplish these things.
Okay.
Could have subsections with labels, current, past, current,
Well, you
future.
could actually have,
'Cause
you could actually have like a chart that you would add to this. Just like,
The first 2 paragraphs talk about the history stuff, and then it says we have 5 properties under consideration. And then we go down a couple more paragraphs, and it says township funds were contributed. Like, it went back to that ought to be with the first section. In other words, that 4th
Because
paragraph,
it's already been done.
Because it's
You're saying?
already
yeah, the
been done.
4th paragraph is already done thing.
So could that be the 3rd paragraph?
Well, I'm just saying, let's divide it up in what's finished, what's open,
Okay.
and what's new.
what's future?
How about if we call the first 2 paragraphs the background,
Yeah, whatever.
and then we move the 4th paragraph up and put a title on that.
And then put currently 5 properties, that last sentence would have to be like a new sentence.
So
part of a
somebody
new-
can clearly see that
Accomplishments.
here's what we're working on,
pending,
and
future.
here's what we intend to work on next.
Right.
Okay, I can do that.
Can you send us a copy of it through email or something?
Sure.
I don't think we need to add anything, I think we just need
Just
to
rearranging things
Rearrange.
and
chop it up in
titling
pieces.
it. Yep, I got you.
Easier to
Gotcha.
grasp. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Is there anything else we want to talk about with that master plan, Sandy?
The planning commission does not meet until 2 weeks from this last Monday, because next week is Martin Luther King. So if there's some decision on the part of the board for a representative or whatever, it would be nice for when the planning commission meets to be able to say that the board is set to go.
Okay.
And then kind of hope that we have a meeting date set.
Okay. Consultant report, we're gonna do in closed session, or do you wanna say something?
Just briefly in the open session that, and I know this in my notes to you all, that the Hornback project did close on the 19th of December with the township's contribution of $64,200. There was a flurry of activity between Sue and me primarily to provide the necessary information for the supervisor and treasurer to
Yes.
fulfill the township's obligation.
Yes. We're very excited about it. All right, then, the next item is messenger article. I sent you, did you get it? Is it okay with you? And I've included it in your packet. Gary did help me immensely on that. Have a new trick.
Back to the thing.
Yep. It's really, and you know, same thing goes for Steve's slide presentation. You know, I put a fair bit of work into both of those to pick them up, but having a place to start from is really helpful.
Right, and I have this new trick, I send him stuff that absolutely is so awful that, that he looks at it and goes, oh my gosh, I have to like.
This is a disaster. Let this go out.
So I just like sent him all this stuff.
on your part, Susan?
Yeah, it was, I planned it on
But it is-
purpose, because it
it's a
gets his
starting
attention. It gets his
It's a starting
attention, and
point.
so then he says, I have to fill in the correct
I gotta
information.
fix this.
Yeah. It's pretty funny anyway. The presentation to the Board of Trustees, how about if we do that after our closed session so that we can still, and I also would like to approve the draft minutes for December 18th next, and the closed session minutes from December 18th next, and then we maybe be able to get into closed session for a few minutes with Mayor Jeff.
Whenever that you're gonna present to the board, or you need some help from the public, could you let me know?
Yes, it's gonna be next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, okay, all right.
At 7.
I just wanna be kept in the loop, please.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
in there, yeah.
Okay.
Approval of draft minutes. Can I hear a motion to approve the draft minutes of December 18th, 2012?
I make motion.
I'll second it.
Susan, is this the closed meeting now?
No, not yet, no,
Okay.
not yet.
All right.
All in favor of approving the draft minutes? Oh, there's an amendment to the draft minutes, excuse me. If you go and look at it, one of the dates was wrong. That Steve, you sent me. July 19th is really supposed to be July 17th. I've already, we have to make it official. So July 17th is the Wednesday, so that needs to be corrected, and I have submitted it to the clerk that way already
Okay.
for posting. So
We're updating it.
So I'd like to hear the approval of the corrected draft minutes for December 18th, 2012.
Aye.
No, you have to
Oh, okay. I make a motion.
make a motion to do
I
the
make a
corrected
motion
minutes.
that we correct the minutes.
Thanks,
I'll
Carl.
second it.
Identified.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the corrected draft minutes of December 18th, 2012, say aye. Aye. Closed session minutes, I have a copy here. I'd like to hear a motion to approve the closed session minutes of December 18th. It's basically, we've had it, we used that as our closed session minutes, and then we will sign them.
I make a motion to approve the closed session minutes of December 18th.
Right. So you just need to sign them.
On the December 18th?
I'll send you a sign.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Who seconded?
I did, and as presented.
Yes. All in favor of approving the closed session minutes, say aye.
Aye.
You can sign it, please. Then we have any board comments at all? Any board member comments? Any extended public comment? Now you can speak again.
There you go. I guess I just had a couple of questions on where this money is coming from for, like $200,000 from the, whatever it's for, $85,000 here. Where is that money?
That money came from an approval by the previous board on the interest income off the landfill. One of the things that this board, we were a committee in the beginning, we felt like the landfill is where we get all of the money for this township. And the landfill has impact on our township for in a variety of ways. And one of the ways we could give back to the people of Salem Township was through the interest income on that money that we receive from the landfill. So we don't take it out of the general fund or out of any of the earnings from the landfill. So it's from interest. And they approved 5 years for $200,000 for the use of acquiring land or developmental rights.
Is that $200,000 for all of 5 years or $200,000
Per year.
Per year, up to $1 million.
We're when you talk about interest, though, today, when I go to the bank, I'm getting like 0.5% on my income. What kind of,
When you look at the treasurer's report for I guess every month, you'll see that the investments the treasurer has made earns interest. And that's the interest that we're talking about. Limited to $200,000 per year, but less than $200,000 if the interest doesn't get up to that amount.
so it isn't like a bank interest, you're not looking to
No,
get.
No.
it's all of the
Money, I
investments
guess,
in
is
the township.
invested.
Okay.
That's our portion only. Did you understand that, what you're asking? Well, you're asking about the Salem Township portion?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
See,
I mean, this bank account is also invested, it's just invested at a very low rate. And the township's fund, from which this interest income is being generated, is something on the order of $8 million.
$8 million.
Probably a little bit more than you have in your bank account.
Right, yeah.
More than I got in mine, I can tell you that.
That is $8 million, don't bet on.
But when you got $8 million, even a 1% interest rate generates a heck of a lot of money.
Yeah, what is that, 8 million? Yeah.
It's a little over.
It's reported every month by the treasurer.
Right.
We haven't seen any reports, I don't think, from the treasurer yet, have we?
It's usually in the messenger, though.
Yeah, he's working on it, and I'm gonna get
This
something.
month, each month we're supposed to get one, right?
So that, $8 million is invested in various ways, the township
Right.
treasurer is responsible for that. And then interest gets generated off of that, and then this group gets some of that interest income, not all of it.
Right.
There's way more than that that's generated.
Even though $8 million is a lot of money, but if you're only getting like 0.5% of that, it still is a lot of money, but it's not when you start talking $200,000 for things, then it's not a lot of money.
That's right. That's why we have to go find other sources of money.
This is what,
It goes almost nowhere when it comes to buying land.
the thing that this board is trying to do is that we are leveraging that money, because whenever we look at a property, 50% of of the development rights, for example, would be paid by a different agency, either the federal grant program. The federal grant, we've received federal grants already on 2 pieces of property. And so that leverages our money, so that we actually get more for our money in preserving certain parts of our township, where we don't have to put out 100%. We only maybe have to put out 20% or 40%.
Talk about the Hornbeck.
Like the Hornbeck property, you can explain the details specifically about that.
The city of Ann Arbor bought the development rights on that, so it's gonna stay open space and farm property forever. But they paid for half of it, the city of Ann Arbor. There was this Greenbelt program that extends out away from the city boundaries. And so they put in 50%, township put in 20%, Washington County Parks put in 20%, and then the landowner donated 20%. They took 90% of the appraised value of the property rather than 100%. So they donated 10% of this. So it comes from a variety of different sources, but the fact that the township had some money to put into it meant that the city was willing to go ahead and put their 50% into it.
What is the advantage, say, to the state? What is the state getting out of, if they're putting in 75% of some of these grants, what is the state getting out of it for doing that?
It's a way of the state to give it's a way for the state to give some of the monies back, because the money, you're discussing the Michigan Natural Resource Trust Fund. So the state of Michigan has land that we sell oil and gas off of. They take the revenues from the oil and gas that's sold, and they give them back to the counties, to the township, back to the people, right? So it's a way of the state to give back the money to justify the oil exploration that on state land. So they're saying, look, return of the funds back to the communities if you have a plan.
And it's just so communities can afford to buy land and have it publicly accessible to their residents. So it's taken a public resource, which is minerals that are in the ground on publicly owned land. It's our resources collectively as people of the state of Michigan. And this mechanism has been set up to take that out of the ground, convert it into money, basically, and then make it available so communities can have places where people can walk their sheepdog and cross-country ski and ride their horses or whatever. That's the whole point of it.
And also in Salem Township, you and your taxes, when you pay Washtenaw County taxes, some of that money, 1% I think it is, that we pay to Washtenaw County for preservation of land in Washtenaw County. And Salem Township has never received any of that money. So this is the first time that
All residents pay into the county.
we've been paying into a preservation program for Washtenaw County, yet we've never enjoyed any of that. And so by having this land preservation board and having people who've come forward and want to preserve their land, and we can find agencies to pay for most of it, we are able to be able to enjoy some of that money that all of our residents have paid into. And so it's kind of confusing until you get used to thinking about preserving land, because most people think about land as a business or as a money flip or gain. But in Salem Township, there are only a few pieces of property left that actually have resources, or what do you call them? Natural things, features that we would want to preserve, other than farmland. I mean, we have a few that we would like to look at that have big stands of trees. We have the headwaters to the Rouge River that we would like to be able to participate in preserving forever, so that we have a responsibility to our world to preserve some of those things from development. And I'm not against development, I'm just I'm just saying that there are some natural features in our township that we need to try and allow to be preserved especially if people who own the property want to preserve their land. There are a lot of people who want to leave that legacy forever. Maroe Carricker did that on Curtis Road. There are 27 acres there that she donated to the township or to the land legacy, and they manage it, and it's a beautiful maple beech woods. I don't know if you've ever walked it, but it's wonderful. It had, in the spring, it has all these natural flowers, and it has water going through it, and it's beautiful. And it has very little invasive species. It's not like you just take land, I mean, and Steve Schaefer here, he is a person who likes to not just preserve what's there, but he likes to take land that's been ruined and rehabilitate land back into its natural state. So there's lots of ways to do and preserve. And plus, in our original master plan that we have a whole section in it about preserving farmland. That's one of the things that the people of Salem Township have gone through public hearings and it's the will of the people to preserve the farms in Salem Township and not to become completely developed from border to border. So, and the best way we thought we could do that was by leveraging money through other agencies and through donations. I mean, people can actually donate their property.
If you can come to the meeting on the 22nd, our presentation will explain a lot of this. And, I encourage you to ask your questions and, give us your input if you support or don't support it. We're looking for feedback on that.
That's the 22nd of,
It's next Tuesday.
And we're going to talk about all these programs that Sue's outlining into some greater detail. And we'll have some maps and some information that you can look at. And if you'd like to sit down and talk more, I'd love to sit down and talk with you guys. Tell you about what we're doing and what's out there.
It takes a while to get your head, I mean, it took me a while to understand. I still don't understand some stuff. But that's why we have Barry Lonick. He's our consultant that's been hired by the township, and he actively works in Washtenaw County and has done this for years and years, and he's very well respected. And he goes and presents ideas and properties to different agencies, and they've been pretty excited about being able to come into Salem Township, because before it was closed. Salem Township was closed, wasn't it? I mean, very few people were able to preserve land in Salem Township.
Nobody really pursued it because there really wasn't a culture.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that concerns me anytime I see a government agency buying private property, for government use, I don't want to get to the point where we don't have any private property rights, where everything is owned by the government.
That's one of the nice things about, like, this property we just purchased, well, we didn't purchase, but we just closed on, that was closed on at the Hornbeck, because it stays as a private piece of property and will always be private property and will always be farmed.
That's like an easement, right?
And we as a public can go on there once a year at a designated time and walk the property and see all the beauties of it and enjoy it. But it's basically promoting, preserving the farm.
And the owner still maintains it. They still
And they pay taxes.
And they still pay taxes on it.
So we don't have the liability, we don't have the cost. I mean, it's really a cost-effective way to do it, to do the preserving of land. And I enjoy land that's open just driving by. I don't even necessarily have to walk on it. I mean, but I enjoy the beauties of it. And I enjoy farms, I mean, and I think in a few years, we're gonna need more and more farms here in Michigan, and we need to preserve them. And allow these people to be able to continue farming, because pretty soon we're gonna have people who are gonna need to farm, or we're gonna need to eat locally grown food. So, anyway, that's my spiel. And you have to leave.
Go get kids.
Now, I do need to have you sign.
Yeah, the
You did?
invoice.
You did?
I didn't yet, 'cause I was gonna ask you, is it open?
It is not. I
Well,
don't
I'll be
have
there
a key.
first thing tomorrow morning then.
Please do that, because
I knew her
he will kill
deadline
me.
is tomorrow. But she told me the deadline was tomorrow, so I knew that if it was locked tonight, I thought maybe it was.
No, they don't, I don't want to be able to get in there after hours.
Are you guys now going into closed session?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Sorry.
I'd like to have a motion to go into closed session.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
All those in favor of going into closed session, say yes when I call your name. Sandy?
Susan, before you go, can I ask why you're going into closed session?
We are going into closed session for,
To discuss negotiations on properties.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, that should be specified in the
Yeah.
motion itself.
Can you videotape that?
No.
No,
Who's videotaping?
discuss
but
what?
properly, the reason for going into closed session does need to be stated
Discuss.
in the motion.
Get this,
Negotiations on property acquisitions.
That was always in here, how did, oh, it's right, closed session for consideration of nominated properties, it's there already. Sorry, I didn't read that part, it's on here already, it's on the other page. Thanks for coming.
you're welcome, it's very profitable.
Oh, good.
Good, I'm glad you enjoyed,
Yeah,
Hope we see you next Tuesday.
yeah.
you will.
Good, good.
Carl Bierman. You want to go into closed session?
Yes.
Thank you. Mary Beth? Susan, yes.
Yes.
Steve Schaefer, yes, so I will call vote. Thank
At
you.
8:10?
At 8:10. We'll take a recess so that they can put down the, yes.